You do have Rick Fox on that track, and we've had Rick on the show, and I think it's great that you guys are together on the Steeler track, first Steeler track in 40 years. But when he was on the show, if I recall correctly, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think I recall correctly, he said that by the time this album came out, the Steeler album, which in my mind is an underground classic, but when that came out, by the time it came out, you guys were already in decline, if not kind of already almost broken up. Is that accurate?
No, I had a different lineup, but we were still selling out every venue in Southern California. We're still one of the top draws on the scene because we always put on a good show.
Yeah, I think that he made that clear. It's like by the time the record came out, you had I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but you had a new lineup.
Yeah.
By the time
I was the day the record came out, I was the only guy left in the band that was on the album.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
He's uncomfortable doing the meet and greet on release day at Tower Records.
Yeah.
You know, the album came out and we're all autographing, and I'm the only guy behind the table that was actually on the record. So that was a little awkward for the new lineup, which featured Greg Chason on bass.
Yeah.
And Kurt James on guitar, Bobby Marks on drums, who went on to be in Keel. So the band never declined.
Okay.
It got to the point to where I realized, because of the revolving door of players, and it gave us the perception of instability in the industry, we weren't going to get signed to a major label deal. And that was a really tough decision for me because Steeler was my baby. I moved to LA with my band Steeler to make it, and we're on a mission. And that was my band and my brand. And to finally come to my senses and say, man, we've got to move on from this. The last thing I wanted to do was call my new band Keel, but it certainly was the right move at the time. We put Keel together in March of '84. We did our first gig a month later in April of '84. By July, we're in the studio recording our debut album, Late on the Law, for Shrapnel Records. And then by August, literally a month later, before the album's even finished, we were signed to Gold Mountain A&M Records with Gene Simmons producing our debut, The Right to Rock. It all happened within a 6-month span, really quick. And now looking back, obviously it was the right move, but that Steeler legacy is still alive and well with the new track, the new music video, which is going to be, and I hate to call my shot here, but man, this new Steeler video is going to be one of the ultimate big-time metal videos of all time. The man behind the camera, the producer and director, is David Pear, who does all the stuff for the Dead Daisies. If you've seen, check out the new Dead Daisies video, We're Gonna Ride. Any of the stuff they've done the last couple of years, David is the man behind the camera. He's a full-time Dead Daisies videographer, creates all their content, all their videos. He's really expensive, but he's really worth it. He's got 2 projects this year, Dead Daisies and Steeler. And we went to Hollywood and did it right. We spent a lot of money and a lot of sweat, muscle, and blood to get this new video created. And we're going to launch that very soon. And a movie that sprung out of that music video project called Steeler Legacy. It's the entire story of the band from day one, with interviews with rock stars and industry execs and interviews with all the guys in the band, telling the story. And the goal was, with the documentary film, to make it to where it's a fun, entertaining story, even if you've never heard of Steeler, or you don't know who Ron Keel is, or you don't know any of the history. It's one of those stories that tells itself. And we take you back to the Sunset Strip in 1983 in every possible way. And it's going to be, we're going to take it to the film festivals, Amazon Prime. And I'm really excited about that the story can be told. And that was really David's, he said, let's make a movie. And it was his idea. He's a young guy. Wasn't even alive in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? So he hears about the legacy like we hear about, the Wild West. To these younger people, it was the Wild West on the Sunset Strip in the 80s. So he was enamored with the history and being able to tell that story. So I'm really excited about the movie, the music video, and the single. Of course, the track, Give Me Guitars or Give Me Death, will be released as a single to radio at the same time that the video comes out. So Steeler is still apparently alive and kicking.
Well, I know a lot of people, you mentioned early in this discussion that you can barely listen to your vocals on that record anymore, but I grew up in San Antonio, and Joe Anthony on 99.5 KISS used to play Hot on Your Heels
Yeah.
all the time. And I remember me and my friends were just in awe of that, the guitar solo, of course, and your voice. Again, I go back to your voice. Your voice, when we all first heard it, it really cut through. It had that grit and that balls, and it was an amazing combination. So uh, I think that record holds up. I feel like it's something you can be proud of, even though, like any creative type, you look back at some of your early work and you go, wow, I've grown leaps and bounds since then. But
Yeah.
I know there's an army of people out there that think that Steeler.
Oh yeah. It's for a lot of people, it's their favorite album of all time. It's their favorite thing I've ever done. I get that. I don't want to tread on their memories or their childhood, that energy that they got from that album. I'm just not happy with the vocals.
Sure.
And I wasn't happy at the time. I did all the lead vocals on the Steeler record. We had a very short schedule and a very tight budget. And I did the vocals. At the time, I was taking voice lessons from Sabine, who was an amazing vocal coach in Southern California. At the time, she was a little teeny Australian lady who could just scream her guts out. She was my teacher. She also coached Michael Sweet from Stryper,
That's
Jizzy
right.
Pearl, Axl Rose. And I don't think it's any secret that all those guys are still belting it out to this day. We're all still using her training. At the time, I was conflicted with trying to do things her way and wanting to do things my way, not really comfortable in the studio yet. I was really young. And so I was conflicted. I didn't like the results on the original vocal sessions. So I asked Mike Varney, the producer, I said, man, you got to let me recut these. I got to give me one more shot at these vocals. And he said, well, when Yngwie's done with his guitar solos, then whatever time's left, we had 40 hours, I think. And that was it. It was 40 hours. And 30 hours. We had 30 hours to cut the whole record. Whatever time's left, when Yngwie's done, you can have whatever's left to recut whatever vocals you want. And it's the last day of the session. And Yngwie was quick, to his credit, man, he went in and just threw it down. It was his lead guitar solos went very quickly that day. And I'm looking at the clock going, man, I know we're done. At 1 o'clock, your album's finished, whether it's done or not, you're off the clock. He's not spending an extra $30 to stay here another hour to let me sing. So Yngwie got done at 9 o'clock that night. Our time is up at 1 a.m. that night. So I had 4 hours to recut the entire record. And I just went boom, 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 take. Didn't listen back to anything. So that for the most part is the result that you hear on that Steeler record. But I am proud of it. I'm proud that it had such an impact on our culture. I'm proud that people love it. And I did have to revisit that when we put Steeler back together in 2019. It was our first show in 35 years? For the Keel Fest event in Columbus, Ohio. And I hadn't sung, I did Cold Day in Hell maybe, Serenade has always been a part of my solo acoustic gig, but I hadn't touched any of those songs or listened to that record in a long time. But in order to rehearse for the show, I had to go back and revisit it and listen to it and sing along with it a bunch. And I did develop a newfound fondness. I don't say I'm not going to like it, but there's some special moments on there, and it's just amazing that we were there at that time in '83 with an album that became a cornerstone and a foundation of that entire era and genre.
Yeah,